Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat episode 561, featuring an interview with the great Richard Benson. Now he's probably best known as the first American to ever be an official James Bond novelist. He's written some excellent books set in the James Bond universe, and if you're anything like me and a fan of old 007, you're going to really be excited about what he says about those. But he's done a lot of other work, including really cool stuff for the games industry. He was the head writer for Ultima VII, The Black Gate, widely considered, especially to people who know, as one of the greatest CRPGs of all time. And a large part of that is the writing. So he's a very, if that's the only thing he had ever done, he'd be worth having on the show. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. He's done tons of other games, Darkseid 2, Return of the Phantom, Are You Afraid of the Dark? It just goes on and on. Done a bunch of tie-in, other game tie-in novels, Splinter Cell, Metal Gear Solid, Hitman, and Dying Light. You know, his resume just goes on forever with exciting stuff. And we didn't get to everything that I wanted to cover, but we hit a lot of the big major touchstones here. So anyway, as you could probably tell, we've got a lot to cover here. So here, without further ado, here is Raymond Benson. Secundo. Wow, Raymond Benson.
You can hear me okay?
Loud and clear. It's like you're in the room with me.
All right. All right.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see you.
Nice to meet you. I've checked out a couple of your podcasts. I saw one with Richard. Had to look at that one.
You go way back. Yeah, what do you?
Yeah.
You got several websites. Let me just show this. I feel kind of like a chucklehead here because I read one of your novels and I see that you've got a collection here. I read this one, 0-10, which is fantastic. But I noticed over here you've got you can get all 6 or how many do you have total? But anyway, you're 6.
Well, of the Bonds, there are 6 original ones that are just original stories, and those were all collected in that book. And then there were 3 movie novelizations that are not on ebook for some reason, but they came out at the time of the movies, the Pierce Brosnan era.
Wow, I'm looking at this. This has got to be the most.
Is that Amazon? Is that where you're looking at?
Yeah, I got your website here somewhere too. But wow, look at all this. Look at all this stuff. My God, I don't even know where to start. Black Stiletto, James Bond. So you've done novelizations, not just James Bond stuff. You got Hitman and so much stuff.
Metal Gear Solid. Splinter Cell.
Yeah, and those are New York Times bestsellers, is what I was reading.
Yeah, they were.
So I think you're the first.
I had to use a pseudonym. I had to use a pseudonym, David Michaels. There were several David Michaels. When the Tom Clancy spinoffs began, his publisher and I guess his people wanted all the spinoffs to be by one author that was a pseudonym for whatever authors were doing it. So there were like 3 or maybe 4 David Michaels, and I was the first one.
Sounds kind of like what they did with Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, kind of a. Well, we know who it was, really. But I think you're the first New York. I could be mistaken, but I'm fairly confident you're the first New York Times best-selling author who's graced Matt Chat.
Well,
so thank you.
You know, hey, it has a nice ring to it, but I promise it doesn't mean as much as you think it does. So,
well, I've done nonfiction books, and that's hard enough. I know how hard it is with fiction to even get a foot in the door, and get any. Yeah. We'll have to get into your story with the Bond and your Bond companion and all that, because you got an interesting way that you got into it, I think. But yeah, I just have infinite respect for you, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh wow, yeah. So where do
And
you
I hope you're a Marx Brothers fan.
Marx Brothers? Is somebody not a fan of the Marx Brothers? I'm always using Groucho Marx has got so many great quotes. So I like to put a little quotation at the end of every episode. I think I've probably done at least 15 or 20 of his quotations over the years. There's so many.
He had some zingers.
Yeah, and you ever watch well, I'm sure you have that game show that he had,
Oh yeah, you bet your life.
You Bet Your Life, and I still like watching that from time to time, and I'm always amazed that he just spontaneously on the spot would come up with all these jokes and
Right, right.
laugh. I could never do that. It's like mine. I could never do that. I'm just not that fast on my feet, I think. Maybe you could.
Well, I don't know, but that's what made him a genius. He was. My favorite one was where there was a guy and a gal, and they were on. They had like he said, "How many children do you have?" And they said, "Oh, we have like I don't. It was something like 10 or 11." And and he went, "Well, I like cigars, but I take it out of my mouth every now and then."
Yeah, so you could get away with stuff like that.
He
And
almost did not get away with that one.
I like
So
that. He would always make fun of like the advertisers too, and like make fun of their
yeah,
products. They probably loved. I mean, if they had any sense,
yeah,
they loved that because it just got them even more publicity. And maybe we should just talk about Marx Brothers.
yeah.
So, what is your connection to it?
The Marksman, I'm just a big fan. I discovered I grew up in West Texas. This was part of my story. I grew up in West Texas, a town called Odessa. I call it Odessalation.
Okay,
And
that's right.
um,
I remember. I'm familiar
we
with
didn't
home.
really get a lot of stuff. Back in those days, I mean, I'm an old guy. We only had three channels, NBC, ABC, and CBS, and a little later we got PBS. And I never saw a Marx Brothers movie until I went to college in Austin, Texas, in the early '70s, and they would show them on campus.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I think in my first 2 or 3 weeks of being a freshman at UT, um, Duck Soup was playing on campus, and I'd always heard about the Marx Brothers. And I went, "Oh, I better go see that." And I was a fan from the get-go, and studied them religiously over the years. So there you go.
My dad was a huge fan. He was always talking about the movie Duck Soup. And
Yeah,
that's
Duck
like you
Soup
say,
is,
he would talk about it, but we had no way to watch it. And then I think one
in my
time we went
opinion,
to a
it's the
blockbuster.
funniest movie. In my opinion, it's the funniest movie ever made.
The funniest movie ever made. Wow. Huh. Well, it's certainly up there. It's definitely got some of the fastest jokes.
Yeah,
What's the one where it's Fredonia.
yeah, that's Duck Soup.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is a funny one. I don't know the funniest. Well, we'll see. I always thought the Monty Python and the Holy Grail was
Well,
pretty.
they're right up there too. I'm a big Monty Python fan as well. So
I think you could make a
there you
case.
go.
No telling how much of that script was just the Marx Brothers just coming up with it off the top of their head too. With the
Right, right.
God, what genius!
So let's get into it.
Yeah, West Texas. Okay, so I wanted to get into your background in theater because I see how that kind of. Well, maybe I'm wrong. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that strand kind of informs all the rest of the achievements.
It does. I
Love to hear
absolutely agree with that statement. I think theater informs all of my work, from writing to computer games to just life. There's an old adage that if you're a theater major, you can do anything
Yeah,
because it
right.
teaches you how to be cooperative and collaborative, and you have deadlines that you've got to meet. You got to open. There's an opening night. You got to get the set done and the everything ready and the rehearsals done, your lines memorized, and everything ready to go on that 7 o'clock, 7:30 opening night. It's got to be done, and you only have so much time to do it. You only have a certain amount of budget to do it, and it teaches you how to put your mind to it and get something done.
The show must go on. Yeah, I always. Love the theater. I kind of dabbled in it a little bit. Some of my friends were theater majors, and they would have classes where they had to write a script or direct a part of a play. So I would occasionally act in those. And even I think it was Lost in Yonkers. I got to be a little part of that. That was like so much fun doing that. I often wonder if I missed out by not, getting more involved in it. Now, I will say that our dungeon master, or the dungeon master for my D&D campaign, is retired from the theater. He's a stage manager, and always I'm going to talk to him next time I see him and ask how much that sort of influences his dungeon mastering, because I
Oh, I'm
feel
sure it
like he
does
has
because
a huge role.
when I played Dungeons and Dragons in the late 70s, the guy who loved being the dungeon master was this theater guy, an actor who really got into it, you know, and he made it very entertaining. Yeah, so if you've got that theatrical flair, you can really entertain your players and do a good job with dungeon mastering.
Yeah, I was reading when you got involved with Origin. I guess it was Origin Systems by that point. Right. Met Richard and all them. You felt like
Yeah, yeah,
when you
it
were
was
looking at
Origin.
those stories and scripts and games, I guess, and you noticed that there seemed to be some space there for for someone with your background to come in and really, revolutionize the industry. And I mean, Ultima 7 is kind of like the one of these holy grail type games for CRPGs. It's if you call yourself a CRPG fan, you better know this one, right?
Yeah, well, it was a groundbreaker as far as
What was it like when you first?
innovation.
I want to get into like what it was like before you got involved, and then what.
Okay, sure. Well, basically, like I went to college to become a theater person, and I was majoring in directing because at that program you could pick the degree within theater. If you want to, you could get an acting degree or a directing degree or a playwriting degree or a scenic design degree. I went for directing. And after college, I worked for 1 year in Houston, Texas, at the Alley Theater, a regional theater, as an apprentice director. Then I moved to New York City, and I lived in New York City for well over a decade. And I started off, doing the off, off, way off Broadway
That's way
theater
off.
scene. I was directing and composing music and doing it all. And it was a great experience. It was a lot of hard work but I was young then. I think you have to be young, kind of, to be doing that. And I was producing my own things and directing them, and um, it
So you
was
weren't the
and
straight.
and
You
holding
weren't.
down a day job is at the same time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was about to ask you. So it doesn't sound like you were the stereotypical starving artist out there. Right? You were
Oh, well, I mean, most people did
successful.
have to have a day job of some kind to do theater, unless once you maybe the 1 or 2% get established as union directors or union stagehands or whatever, and then you're always working in the theater. Then you make a living. Otherwise, you make your living doing something else, and then you do theater for love. And I got to the point where I I still love theater. I miss it. I would like to do it, but it was in the early '80s that I just my interest, I was still into theater. I was still doing theater. I was still had a day job, but then I got this crazy idea to write a nonfiction coffee table book about the history of James Bond
Wow. So that
because I was a fan since the age of 9. My father had taken me to see Goldfinger when it first came out on the big screen, and it changed my life. It just kind of, I can't believe this. It was, I'm growing up in West Texas, believe me, and it was an eye opener. And then about 5 months later, 5 or 6 months later, the studio re-released Dr. No and From Russia with Love as a double bill. And so I saw the first three movies on the big screen at the age of 9, bam, bam, bam. And then I started picking up the Ian Fleming books and started reading them. And at that age, some of it goes over your head, but I could grasp the stories, and I loved them. And I also recognized how different they were from the movies.
Mm.
You know, very different. The Bond character is very different than in the movies. But anyway, I kept up with reading the books and with all the movies, all from then on. And by the 80s, there were no books that had everything in it. There were a couple of books about the movies by themselves. There was, some biographies of Ian Fleming, but they were out of print. There was maybe some books from the 1960s that were about the novels. They were out of print. I wanted a book that had a history of the phenomenon, a biography of Ian Fleming, analyses and critiques of all the movies and all the books, all in one big book, because I wanted it on my shelf. I wanted that book. So I had to write it. It didn't exist. And so I pitched it to a publisher in New York. I had a friend who had a book published. And I said, "How'd you do that?" And he said, "Well, I told him what I wanted to do." And he goes, "That's a good idea. Let me introduce you to my editor." So I kind of had it in. And
Right.
I told her what I wanted to do. She goes, "Oh, you need to write a proposal." And she gave me an outline that said, "This is what you need to do. Take this home and write it out and, give it back to me." So I did. And I got a contract to write the book overnight. But it took me 3 years to do it. And I went to England.
Only three
Yep,
years.
that's it. The James Bond Bedside
I'm like,
Companion. That's
only
yep.
took. So, I mean, this is thing. How many does it have the pages for the 753 pages?
Well, that's the ebook. Yeah. So yeah, I went to England and I interviewed, met members of Ian Fleming's family and his, you know, uh, friends and colleagues, and then I wrote the book. It took 3 years. It finally came out in 1984. And it was updated in 1988, but that's the last edition. So this version you're looking at there, that's the ebook. That's the only, it's the print versions are out of print, but you might be able to find them on eBay. But
Oh, they're out
the
of print.
ebook, yeah, that's a used copy,
I
believe
need
me.
to do. How many editions are there?
Well, there was the original 1984. There was one from 1986 that was kind of a book club edition, and then 88 was an updated edition. And then that's all there was. The ebook is the updated version, but it only goes up to 1987. And
Oh,
I'm never, I really can't update it after that because I eventually became a Bond author, so I can't really ethically critique other authors or the movies or anything else because I was on that side of the fence. You see? So it will always be a relic of the 1980s. And,
wait, what do you?
I'm
What?
fine.
I'm trying to understand what you're saying there. So, what's the problem?
Well, eventually, I became an official author of Bond novels.
Right.
So
Awesome.
I was one of
Awesome
the
at that.
creators.
So yeah, that
So I
makes you.
couldn't then step back and be a journalist and critique
Oh, I
not
see.
only my own books, but other authors' books. Like, who is this guy? He's one of the writers. Why is he critiquing us? You know,
Like you
it's
need
it,
like
it,
a co-author or somebody to step in and do that part, right?
yeah, nah, nah. It's a relic of the 80s. I mean, other books have been published since that have covered everything else. I mean, mine was it was a groundbreaker. It was the first of its kind. And I'm fine with that it has that legacy. And so, that's what it is. But anyway, that kind of set my career in a whole different direction. Um, and I gained a literary agent um, in the process of this. And he called me, it was like a month after the book was published in 1984. And he called me, he said, um, I have this company that's come to me. They're looking for a writer of games, of computer games. Are you into computer games? And remember, in this time period, at 1984, this was a very new phenomenon. PCs were just coming into the home, the Apple IIc and the Commodore and, things like that. Um, and games were like the Infocom, Zork, the text adventures. Um, very little graphics. I was into Infocom. I really liked Zork. Um, I was into games. I played, like I mentioned, I played Dungeons and Dragons in the late 70s. There was a James Bond role-playing game that came out in 1983 from Victory Games, a pencil and paper role-playing game. And I knew the guys who created it because I lived in New York. All the sort of Bond fans kind of knew each other. It was kind of a small club. Yeah, that's it. There it is. And so they asked me, would I be interested in writing an adventure module for it? And I said, sure. So I started writing one of those at the same time that this agent got me hooked up with a company that was doing text adventures. And they had a license to do 2 James Bond titles. And that's why he thought of me. So I accepted this assignment. I quit my day job and became a writer designer of computer games. And
What
I
was it?
never in the world thought I would be doing that. That just kind of
What was the
fell in
day?
my lap.
What was the day job? Just out of curiosity.
What was my day job?
Yeah.
It it was I worked at a financial firm as a secretary. I was a really fast typist, and I worked in sort of the marketing department. I would like write and uh, you know create the brochures and pamphlets of the company and stuff like that. So
I think
that
I
was
would
my
have
day
made the
job.
same move, Raymond. Office work, making
Yeah,
games.
yeah, I know, I
That
know.
was Mindscape.
So
Is that
I did
Mindscape?
three. I did 3 of those games. The first one was a Stephen King adaptation of his story, The Mist.
Okay, yeah. That was for Mindscape.
Yep, yep, 1985. And the next one was the Bond movie, A View to a Kill, also from Mindscape. And yep, that's it.
I wonder why did they
That
put
is
you
it.
on this? Why did they put you on this one instead of just doing Bond right away?
Well, that was the first one they wanted to do.
Oh, that's a cool.
Um, and to tell you the truth, I think it's the best one that I did of those 3.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Um, it was a good game. I like that one. It had an interesting storyline and presence and all that. Yeah, it was cool.
I
So
bet
I
you
did
that.
that one first, and then I did A View to a Kill,
This brings
and then
back
I
some.
did Gold. I'm sorry.
I bet this brings back some memories for you looking at these screens.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it got marked. Oh my God.
It got Mark. This is about the
Yeah,
myth. Yeah, that's a good story. I bet that was fun doing this.
yeah, it was. It was good. And then there was the Bond movie, A View to a Kill, and then I did Goldfinger. So those were the 3 that I did for. It was a company called Angel Soft that did the development, and then Mindscape distributed them.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, I was looking at some of the reviews of these text adventures because I think they were pretty much all well received.
At the time, yeah, I think they were. I mean, now they're pretty, dated.
Bond and
If you can even play them. I mean, you know,
well, I think
I
they're
think
not available on Steam or GOG or anything.
they are available somewhere online where you can play them for free.
Oh yeah, Goldfinger. That would have been. Well, that was like your baby, I bet, when you.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
no,
like,
that was
yes, yes.
yeah, I know. It was like, who would have thought when I was 9 years old that I'd someday be doing writing a game about it. But even more ironic, who would have thought that I would actually, this kid from West Texas would be chosen to write official James Bond novels, which happened, about 10 years later.
Oh, look, I got the box here. Let's see.
That's it.
Wow. Look at that cover on that.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that from the movie, this shot? What am I?
No, that was actually a from one of the paperback books of the in the 70s, I believe.
Oh,
That was the cover of one of the reprints of the novel.
wow. I don't know. It's just a tough interview for me because I love so many things that you do. It's like, where do I even go? I mean, I could just easily talk James Bond all day,
Well, I
work
probably
about
could
that
too.
stuff. So let's see, where we are in the story. So you did these text
So I
adventures.
did those, yeah, I did those three games. Then, I got married, I had a kid, and we eventually moved back to Austin, Texas, out of New York. We'd been there a long time, and after having a child, we thought, let's get out of New York City. So I went back to New York and was kicking around, had a day job, was I had I had a crazy idea that I might go into court reporting because I thought, gee, if I became a court reporter, I could come up. I would hear a lot of stories about murders and stuff, and that would inspire me to write novels or something like that. That was kind of my motivation, but I really hated it. I didn't like studying court reporting. I didn't do it very long. I just kind of got out of it, and lo and behold, in the newspaper looking for a job, I saw an ad, writers wanted, computer games. Call this number. Okay, I called them, and it turned out to be Origin
Wow.
because they were based in Austin, Texas. And so I went and interviewed, and I already had three games, and four if you count the role playing game. I had four games under my belt. I had a book published. Um, I was a bit older than a lot of the people that worked there. I was already in my 30s. Most of the people up there were in their
That's so
20s,
old. You're in your
young
30s.
20s. Richard was 5 years younger than me. Um, but they hired me. And the first thing they put me on was Ultima 7. They were just starting it, just starting Ultima 7.
That's a
So
He would just instantly put
I,
on the flagship product. That's a he must have had. You must have. Is he the one that interviewed you, Richard Garriott?
well, first it was Warren Spector. Do you know that name?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, Warren Spector interviewed me. He did the sort of the initial interview. Then, he passed me on to Richard. So, and then we got on and I got hired. And I got to say, you know, Richard Garriott is a genius. And Richard, if you're listening, I think I've told you that before, but it was a pleasure and very eye-opening to work for Richard Garriott, and learned a lot from him. I was very honored that he put me as the head writer of Ultima 7. And so, we the first, couple of weeks, 3 weeks, we were hashing out, just sort of brainstorming about what it would be. He had a pretty good idea what the premise of the game was going to be. And, he was working with the programmer, Ken Demarest, and Jeff D, who was the head of the art department of the game. And, yep, there it is. But as far as the storyline, Richard had the opening premise that the Avatar goes back to Britannia because of this presence of the Guardian has made an announcement that he's coming back. Yes, the Guardian, there he is. And Richard had this idea that the Britannia was now kind of infected with this cult religious group, kind of very Scientology like, called the Fellowship. And that was basically it. That was the premise. That's what he gave me. And so I had to come up with a storyline. The Guardian wants to come into Britannia, but he has to do it through some kind of complicated magical way. So the Avatar's goal is to prevent that from happening. Um, so I had to come up with the full, plot. I had a team of writers. I think it was four people, and they were assigned to do sort of subplots throughout the Britannia. Like, there's all these little towns in Britannia, so that each town had their own little subplot. So they
Mm.
were in charge of that. I was in charge of the overall plot and sort of what we call, my credit was, screenplay and story direction. So there's my theater training right there. I directed the story,
Right.
as if I was looking at a overhead map of the place and where everything was going to be happening and where all the characters were placed, the staging of the story, you know. So that was my job, and it took us a year, uh, well over a year. It was hard work, and it came out, and it was a big hit. So
I think it's probably still on most people's top five, at least, if not the best of all, even after all these years. But like a lot of times when you talk about it, people are so amazed at the interactivity of the game world.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it was fun, I mean, there's all kinds of little in jokes all the way through it. People, like,
Dialogue
some of
is
the books you would open up would be some kind of, I I seem to remember the James Bond Bedside Companion is one of the books somewhere
what?
in Britannia. I
It's in
think
there.
so. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Um, and anyway,
So you
once
had
that
a
happened, I started getting recruitment queries from other companies. Um, and I got an offer from Microprose in Maryland. Oh, Collected Plays by Raimundo. Yeah, that was my alter ego.
Raymond.
Uh,
Three on a
three
card.
on a codpiece. Forgot about that. And actually, The Plagiarist and Thumbs Down are actual short stories that I wrote.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, and Clue. And when I was in college, I did a one-act musical based on the game Clue. I couldn't publish it because it was, owned by Parker Brothers, but we did it. We produced it in college,
I
and
read,
it had music and everything. So
I
that
read
was
somewhere
fun.
that your son's in here somewhere too.
Yeah, my son and my wife is in there too.
Oh,
Everybody put their, families as extra characters, and it was it was something. Well, anyway, I did work just a little bit on Serpent Isle, which was part two of Ultima 7. I wasn't the head writer or anything, but I think I did the writing of one subplot in a story, and I can't even remember what it was because I was gone within 3 months. I also did some music for one of the Game Boy Ultimas called Runes of Virtue. So
oh,
I contributed some pieces of music to that one.
what's it called
And
again?
in Ultima 7, I wrote one of the songs. I wrote the love theme.
Yeah, the music. I want to talk about that. I'm gonna see if I can get a picture of this Game Boy game. It's called Runes of Virtue, right?
Runes of Virtue.
Yeah,
I
here's
thought it was going to be called Runes of Virtue 2, but
do this one too then.
maybe. No, I think it was the next one. Runes of Virtue 2
Okay, let's see. Some,
came out, I think, it came out in 1994 or 1995.
okay, this one
Yeah,
19.
that's it.
This is it.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
Yep, that's it. That's it. So I did a couple of I did about 6 songs that were in that.
oh, there's a Super Nintendo version too. Yeah, so we got to get into your music a little bit because wow, so many talents. So what all do you did you grow up playing music or is it
Yeah,
family
I was
music
a
fan?
pianist. I started playing piano when I was about 7. So
Okay.
I grew up, pretty versatile. I played in a couple of bands, but I started writing music for theater. I would collaborate with a playwright, and he would do the words, and I would do the music. And there were, several musicals productions, original ones that were produced. There was one called The Resurrection of Jackie Kramer that occupied 6 years of my life. There were six productions of it around the country. And eventually, I directed an off-Broadway production of it in 1980. But, like a lot of theater endeavors, a lot of work goes into them. Sometimes there's a lot of productions and you get to a certain point and you think, okay, maybe producers are gonna grab onto it and take it to Broadway. It just never happened. I don't know, so oh,
You talk
what
about
is
this.
that?
Yeah, what is this? It's something to do with my university. Did you perform it at St. Cloud State?
Oh, that's the playwrights stuff. Frank Galliano. Um, so
We have this folder here at my university. I wonder how that what are the odds, huh?
that's interesting. I don't know why it's there. Um, I wonder if any of the I wonder if it's just the text or some of the music, because the music was never professionally recorded. There's just, amateur recordings of it, um,
I've
which
never
is a shame.
website before, but maybe I could look into this if you want to know more.
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah.
Here's
Oh
the
well, there's a picture from the off-Broadway show
guy.
that I directed. And, oh, there's me playing probably on YouTube a piece from it. There you go. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I love to compose music, and I did contribute the one song in Ultima VII, the love theme, which is apparently very popular. Other people are covering it on YouTube and stuff. Um, but anyway,
Love
where
theme
was
from
I?
Ultima 7. Is it also in Serpent this
Yeah, they used it in Serpent
Serpent
Isle as
Isle
well.
too? I see.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Oh,
I
you
mean,
got a
they own it,
video
so
you're playing this on YouTube. Oh, look at this. Hang on, let me see if I can pull this up.
okay.
Get rid of this. I don't know if this will play.
Let me hear it.
Can't hear it?
No, can you?
Yeah, I can hear it on my end, but I don't know. Sometimes that
Yeah,
works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll
yeah,
put the link.
yeah.
So the
Well,
point
you can
being,
on YouTube,
playing.
folks. There's a YouTube channel of Raymond Benson, and you can find all sorts of pieces that I've recorded, especially during the pandemic. I uploaded about 100 videos of
Oh,
my music and rock and roll and movie music and all kinds of stuff. So you can find it all up there.
I don't know. Those
Anyway,
Ultimate fans are
so
crazy, so they must just love this. I was looking at your comments on that video, and they're all like, "We're not worthy." Well, that's so cool.
um,
And it's just
so
amazing to me that you'd be writing it and doing the music. Like you, it would
so
get you
so
basically the thing
microprose.
wouldn't be the same without you.
Well, I don't know. That's hard to say. It was a collaborative effort.
Right.
I was the head writer. I had four talented writers working under me, and the programming was a whole thing that was incredible. The artwork, all of it, the sound. It was like making a movie. You had a whole big giant team. You know, so but I was very proud. I'm proud to be part of it. But like I said, Microprose recruited me. So they offered me a writer designer position, and for more money. And so we moved. We went up to Maryland, and I worked for Microprose for about a year and a half. And I did Return of the Phantom, which was a sequel to Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, this
Um,
thing's it's got kind of a cult classic following, right? This
Yeah, it does.
Phantom, reading
I
about.
know there's one guy who's like a huge fan of it, and he did like videos of it and all kinds of stuff. It's all on YouTube. But that's it. That is Return of the Phantom. Yeah. and it's very theatrical. My theatrical training certainly helped in that because it all takes place in the opera house.
Yeah, yeah, this is
So,
like the
you go,
perfect game. This is the perfect game for a theater guy. I mean, wow.
yeah. So, you go into all the different places in the theater, like, dressing rooms and backstage and where they build the sets and in the auditorium and on stage itself and the orchestra pit. And yep, there you go. That's it.
Yeah, I was reading that people really thought this was an excellent, especially back in '93, excellent graphical adventure game. Of course, you had all those Lucasfilm ones and the Sierra ones, but this one was a serious game. Yeah, at
Well, it
least,
had humor, but yeah,
well, like compared
it
to
was a
Monkey
it was a
Island,
go it was a ghost story. It was a ghost story.
scary.
So, uh, unfortunately, Microprose kind of went through some financial issues, and they had to lay off about a third of the company, including the division that did the graphic adventure games.
What happened to him?
So, after working there for a little over a year, I got laid off. My
What
whole
happened?
department did.
Why were they hemorrhaging cash? What happened?
I don't know. Um, that's not a question for me. So I found myself freelancing again, or without a job. But then I got a call from my good pal David Mullick, who was working at Cyber Dreams
Uh,
in California, and they had just had a big hit with Dark Seed.
I played that on my
Yeah,
computer.
yeah, you remember Dark Seed, and interestingly, it won the Computer Game of the Year award against Ultima VII: The Black Cave.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it did.
This is
Yeah, that was it. Dark. That's the first one. So he was looking for a writer designer to do the second one, part two. And I was now, free and loose. So he hired me. And I worked remotely from Maryland doing that. There it is. Yeah, that's the one I did. I was the writer designer of that. And to this day, I feel that this is my best game. It's the one I like the most.
wow.
Um, yeah, I loved it. It was just it was my total original story, and I think it was very Twin Peaks inspired because at the time, this was the early '90s. I was coming off of Twin Peaks, and I would really love that show. Um, so it has that kind of vibe to it. It didn't come out until 1995, but I wrote it in 1993.
Huh.
Yep, that's it.
This looks really fantastic, this art.
Yeah, we worked with H.R. Giger. A lot of it, a lot of his stuff is in it. Um, but
Very
anyway, when I was just about finished writing this, I got recruited by Viacom New Media in the Chicago area. And we moved to the Chicago area and I started working for Viacom in late 1993. And I was immediately put on, Viacom owned Nickelodeon and Paramount and all these, and so they wanted to do tie-ins to all of their products. So there was that TV show called Are You Afraid of the Dark, where the kids sit around a campfire and tell ghost stories. That was the first game I was put on. So it was Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of Orpheo's Curse. And again, yep, there it is. I was the head writer and screenplay writer and story director, just like I did for Ultima 7. And this was a fun game. This was a great thing to do. It was a great experience. I loved it. And we were based in the Chicago area, but we had to go to New York a lot. And we went to Nickelodeon studios in Florida a lot to shoot some stuff. So it was kind of a, you know, a state hopping game, the production of it. And we used live actors and animation, and I even had a song in this one too.
Oh, what's the song?
um, it's called Frederico's Song, and it's sung by a character named Frederico. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, this is like a
And the character that you see on the screen that is Frederico is me, but I made up heavily.
oh, which one did it? Was that the one I was showing?
Let's see. No, I don't. That's not it. No,
Not the cape.
I'm sure it's on YouTube. Probably is that little sequence. It's not me singing, but it's me sort of doing the motions. So that came out in 1994 and won some awards. And then I did for Viacom The Indian in the Cupboard, based on, well, it was based on the book that was a classic children's book, but the movie had been coming out by Paramount at the time. So it was a tie-in to the Paramount movie. And I was the writer designer of that. Yep, there you are.
Young Mark Zuckerberg there. Let's
So
get some more screenshots, guys, on. I don't know who took these screenshots. I feel like they could do better. This is a
well,
famous game too. For the Indie in the Cupboard.
it won some awards for, like, children's project products and things. So yeah, I'm proud of all my games. I didn't do a lot. There are less than 10, I guess, but each one, was none of them were stinkers.
I mean, if all you'd ever done was the Ultima 7, that would already be a huge claim to fame. But all these other ones, my goodness.
Yeah.
So you like
So then it was around
RC2.
that time that came out in 1995. In early November of 1995, this was right before GoldenEye, the movie, came out. About 3 weeks before the movie, 2 weeks before the movie or so. I got a call from the Ian Fleming people in London, because I'd gotten to know them when I did the James Bond Bedside Companion. We'd stayed in touch, and I knew the man who was in charge. His name was Peter. He was Ian Fleming's literary agent back in the day, and he was in charge of the business of, either hiring new writers or, keeping the publications going and all that. He called me out of the blue and he said, "Listen, John Gardner, who had been writing the books, he wants to retire. We want to know if you want to give it a shot." I'm just going, "What? Are you out of your mind?" He probably thought he was. Probably other people thought he was out of his mind too. But he asked me, and I couldn't say no. I'd never published a novel before, and here I was being asked to write James Bond. And I said, "Sure. How are we going to do this?" And so we had to, we talked about it, what direction, the books would be going in and stuff. And I had to write an outline of a story first on spec. And that had to get approved by him and the British publisher and the American publisher. And once that was approved, I had to write the first 4 chapters on spec. And all that had the same approval process. And once that was done, it was announced in the spring of 1996 that I was the next Bond writer. I kept working at Viacom at the time because I didn't know if this was going to work. I didn't know if I could do it, if it would be rejected or what. So I continued working at Viacom, and for that last year that I was there, we were working on trying to develop new things and other projects. The company was in trouble. I know I worked on at least 2, maybe 3 startup kind of ideas and things, and we kind of developed them for a month or 2 or 3, and then the head office in New York would just go, "No, we're deciding against that one. Come up with something else."
Mm.
And so I kind of spun my wheels, but at the same time, I was writing a James Bond novel
I would have been so
on the
excited
side.
about the James Bond. I don't know if I could have concentrated on anything else. But yeah,
And this was 0 - 10. And I did take,
freaking great novel, by the way. I just have to say
well,
that
thank you.
again. I've read the Ian
Thank you.
Fleming ones. I haven't read the Gardner ones. But
Well,
wow, did I love that novel. I'm going to read all the rest
thank
of
you.
them too.
Thank you. Well, in May of 1996, I was still working at Viacom, but I took some vacation time and my wife and I went to Hong Kong and China and Macau to do the research for the book.
Wow. So you were
And,
really taking this as
and
seriously.
yeah,
Show us
absolutely.
too, because like
So,
the details in the book, you couldn't just make that stuff up. I mean, you were there, you can tell.
yeah, pretty much in those days, you didn't have Google Maps where you could take the little guy down on the street and walk around town. You couldn't do that then. You had to actually go and walk around town and eat the food and smell the smells and stay in Bond's hotel and that kind of stuff. You had to really experience it. So I
Sorry,
did
we're talking
and
about this.
wrote the book. And then in the fall of 96 it was accepted. It was going to get published. And it got published in April of 1997. And by then I'd already started the second one, which was The Facts of Death. So in April of 97 I left Viacom because I had to also write the novelization of Tomorrow Never Dies, the Pierce Brosnan movie.
Oh,
Uh, so that, the film people gave me the screenplay and I had to turn it into a book. So I wrote that in between the first two original novels, but
that's
while I was writing the second one. So I was kind of juggling two books at the same time. So I had to quit my day job, the day job of Viacom. So from then on, I've been a freelance author, and I did Bond for 7 years, and then the contract ended, and they moved on, and they like to, now they periodically hire new authors to do the works. Yeah, I did that one.
yeah, I'm trying to find the one you were talking about. What was it? What
So
was
yeah,
the
that's it, right there, right there. That's it. Yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah, that was the first novelization I did, and then World Is Not Enough, and then Die Another Day.
I think I'm gonna ask you, Raymond, a very tough question. Who's the best James Bond? I
You know
feel
how
like
many times I
I
get it?
want to hear your answer to this because everybody's got.
Well, most people you should couch it as who's your favorite James Bond,
Oh,
because
okay.
nobody can
We
say
can do that. Who's
best
your
on anything like that. Uh, uh, I answer there was Sean Connery, and then there's everybody else.
See, that's the right answer. That's
Because
criticism.
Sean,
Like I
if
grew up with watching the Roger Moore ones, and I freaking love those. I watched them obsessively as a kid, but later
yeah,
I got to
well,
watch the Sean Connery, and I'm like, okay, he's just so good.
well, if Connery had not been a success in Doctor No, the first film, if that had not been a success, if Connery had not been accepted, we wouldn't be talking about James Bond today.
Wow.
And people forget that Sean Connery in 1966 was the number one box office star in the world. His Bond was so groundbreaking. It was, he kind of created this anti-hero that we didn't really have before. We didn't have anti-heroes in movies before. Humphrey Bogart, maybe in a couple of movies, some of the film noir movies might have been an anti-hero, but not like a franchise where a guy was, he was a good guy, but he was, you know, kind of a bad guy too. He had a license to kill. He was a womanizer, um, drank a lot, smoked a lot. He was just, this anti-hero. And then, the Clint Eastwood Man with No Name was kind of the second one. He was kind of the second anti-hero in movies that kind of came about. And that was in the 60s too. Um, so, if Connery had not been what he was and how good he was, yeah, I don't think the Bond franchise would have lasted. There he is. Yeah, that's later in his career, but the early films, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Doctor No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, those and Thunderball, those are the classics.
Trying to get it. There's some of these Goldfinger pictures a little bit racy. I will show it anyway. Yeah, this I think is a good example of what we're talking about. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
he's not the goody two shoes hero.
right. And then when Roger Moore got into it, they kind of changed the tone of the films. The 60s Bonds with Connery were action thrillers. The ones in the 70s with Roger Moore were action comedies.
Hmm.
They played them more for laughs. And then after 15 years of that, or 12 years of that, they decided, well, we've had enough of that. Let's try to get serious again. And that's when Timothy Dalton came in, and they made more grounded, down to earth, serious thrillers again. And he played it. He actually played it, in my opinion. He's the closest to the books. The literary character was Timothy
Yeah,
Dalton.
I've heard a lot of people say that the people that
Yeah,
really know Bond well, they'll tell.
yeah. And at the time, just coming off of the Roger Moores, I'm not sure how well the audiences were not quite ready for an edgy, serious Bond. That wouldn't come about until 15 years later with Daniel Craig.
Hmm.
So in between, there was Pierce Brosnan, who was kind of a mix of everybody who had gone before. Connery, Moore, Timothy Dalton, George Lazenby, um, and it worked. Pierce was very successful, but then they got once we got in the 2000s, things had changed, and so the Daniel Craig versions of Bond, they were very serious and hard hitting, and they were thrillers. Not much humor, um, and they were closer, in tone, I would say, to the books.
Trying to think of that Sean Connery one where they made two movies the same year, one with him and one with Roger Moore. And
Yeah, that was called Never Say Never
yeah,
Again.
never say
It,
never
it-
again. That was a
yeah, it was a remake of Thunderball
oh,
because a different guy had the actual film rights to that story. So when they made the original Thunderball, he got producer credit, not the Broccoli people, not Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman. They were executive producers on that one only. But Kevin McClory was the producer of Thunderball, and he retained the rights, and he got the remake going in the early 80s and called Never Say Never Again. And he was good friends with Connery. So Connery came back and played Bond again. That's how that happened. So, people call it an unofficial film, but it was really official because he had the legal right to do it. It just was not made by Eon Productions and the whole Broccoli camp, so it was different.
yeah. I like all those movies.
Yeah,
The
they're all great.
music, everything's good.
Yeah. But since Bond, I've just been doing my own stuff, and but just recently, well, yeah, my own stuff, and that includes, some other tie-ins with video games like the Splinter Cell books, the Metal Gear Solid books, Hitman, Dying Light, um,
They're all
and my
big,
own
big
stuff.
properties. I mean, you're like the go-to guy for game novelizations.
Yeah, I
When you
do it.
want
I
it
do a
done
lot of
right, you go to you.
I guess, it's good bread and butter work. Let's put it that way.
That's what I was going to
And I'm
ask
also,
you. Are these things you look forward to doing, or is it just kind of like paying the bills? You'd rather work on your original stuff? I mean,
yeah, I'd rather work on my original stuff, but I don't mind doing these tie-in works if they're interesting projects.
mm,
You know, I'm not, there may have been one or two in that mix that I kind of just did because I needed the money. But most of them I enjoyed doing, you know. Um, and I do ghostwriting too. And that can be very lucrative. But
really?
um,
Huh.
my original books, my Black Stiletto serial is my favorite. Um, it's gotten a lot of traction. It's 5 books that tells one big story. It's kind of like Harry Potter in that each book is a standalone, but they tell an overall overarching arc. So it's 5 books. The Black Stiletto. Um,
You like
yep,
the oh,
that's
well,
the fourth one. That's the fourth one. Yeah, yeah. There it
okay.
is. 5 book series. Yeah, there you go.
All right, so you got 5 of these.
Yeah, 5, and they tell one big story. Um, and it has been optioned to maybe be a movie or a TV show, but it's been optioned a long time. So who knows if that's going to happen? Um, but yeah, I think I consider that my magnum opus.
You get optioned. Is there like a? I've always wondered, like, does that mean they're definitely going to make it? There's a chance. I mean, what are
It
the
means
odds?
it means the producer has the right to shop it around.
I mean, they're serious enough about it to invest some real capital and
Yeah,
time. Okay, so we
yeah.
might see a movie or a show. Would you rather have?
Well, I would like to see it as a TV series since it's got 5 books. You know, you can't guarantee there'll be 5 movies. So if it was a TV series, maybe they could do the whole story in uh,
Would this
two
appeal to
seasons, 3 seasons.
people that really love your Bond books? Would this be a natural progression for them?
Well, it's different, you know. I know, actually women readers tend to like this one a lot. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's a thriller. It's got action in it. It's about a woman in the 1950s who puts on a mask and she becomes a vigilante for social justice in New York City. And she's active for 5 years. Nobody knows who she is, and she mysteriously disappears. We cut to the present day in the Chicago area. There's a grown man taking care of his mother who has Alzheimer's. And it turns out she was the Black Stiletto, and he discovers that. And so it's two stories going on back and forth in time, her story in the past and their story in the present, back and forth all through all 5 books. And you learn a lot of stuff. There's a lot of secrets and mysteries all throughout that you learn about. And so, yeah, that's what it is. Um, and then lately, just this past year, I was brought back into the Ian Fleming Bond universe for the very first ever Felix Leiter novel. And as you,
Oh, that's funny.
for those of you who don't know, Felix Leiter was Bond's American pal who pops up every now and then. Um, he's a much better character in the original books than he is in the movies. In the movies, he's usually just sort of a second banana, and he's always played by different actors. In the books, he's very unique because he has a prosthesis for a right hand, and he's never been shown that way. Yeah, there it is, The Hook in the Eye. It's out now as an ebook, and the print book comes out in October.
Raymond Benson at his very best.
Well, I'm pretty proud of this one. Of
Hooked
course,
on.
Felix Leiter. Fleming created him as a Texan.
Oh, this
And
is it's making I'm getting goosebumps at the like it was meant to be.
yeah,
The
yeah,
first American to be writing Bond books, right?
yes, I was. Yeah.
Lost his job at the CIA.
So yeah, so right now I'm in the midst of this book, uh, promoting it and gearing up for the print
Oh, so
book
this will be a
launch.
serial ebook. Oh, what is okay?
Well,
It's a little bit different.
actually, we started off. It was going to be a serial, but they decided not to do that. And it's the whole thing is out. If you buy it on as an ebook, you get the whole thing.
Okay, well that's a relief. Whose idea? So I guess the original plan was to kind of do one chapter at a time or something. And
Well, a bit, yeah, a chunk of it at a time. Kind of like an old pulp, serial. Was kind of the original idea to do it that way, but it didn't work out. So, they just released the whole thing, and
only
the
six
print
dollars.
book comes out in October. Yeah.
How come it has? Why is that only $6?
Well, it's an ebook. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Hook in the eye. No, I bet that's a lot of fun. You're getting kind of develop a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're going to be a big part of the James Bond universe, even more so.
Yeah.
Wow.
Matt, I might have to call this short. We've been talking an hour.
Oh
If
yeah.
you want
Oh
to if you want to do a part two sometime, we can.
yeah. I think we have to. I mean, we got so much stuff to talk about. But hey, I appreciate you taking an hour. This has been fantastic. Great meeting you. I know people are really gonna love to hear all your stories and everything. So
Yeah,
you can read them and you put a face to the author. So yeah, thanks again, Raymond. So thanks so much for doing this. It means a lot to me.
you bet. Thanks for asking me to come on. I appreciate it.
Oh, my absolutely my pleasure. So yeah, you go do what you need to do. Write some
Okay.
more novels. We'll talk again.
Maybe we'll be chatting again.
Yeah, hopefully.
And that's all for this week's episode. I'm in a little bit of a silly mood here. Just deal with it. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun for me. I love James Bond. I love Ultima VII. So that was a lot of cool stuff in there. Hope you liked it. If you liked it, maybe you even loved it. Maybe you could take it from here all the way up to here. Look, all you got to do is go to that link in the show notes. There's the Patreon link. You can become a member here at YouTube. You can go to that Ko-Fi site. There's many, many ways you can be part of this show, be part of the team, be part of the production, be almost as cool as Raymond Benson. Yes, almost. And you might get there eventually. Don't don't give up. But please do. If you like the show and want to keep these episodes coming, don't stop. Go to that link in the show notes. Click right away. A few minutes. You'll love it. You'll get some really cool benefits. You get the Discord channel. You get all sorts of really cool vibes and feelings and cool stuff. And just come on in. You know, you've been hanging out back there too long. It's time to join the crew. You won't ever look back. I promise you. You're gonna love it because it's really cool here in the Matt Cave. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Oh, you know what we've got? We've got that news from the Matt Cave. Yes, let's see what we got. Miko. Good old Miko writes in about a little thing called Shards of the Realm. You ever wonder why they call them pot shards instead of pot shards? You ever heard that? Archaeologists? Not that that's either here nor there for this. I just thought I would ask that because I don't know the answer, and I want to know the answer. But anyway, this is Shards of the Realm, not to be confused with Shards of the Realm. A deep old school strategy tactical... wow, a deep old school strategy tactical RPG. Be still my beating heart. What a way to start off. Ooh, love all those words. That blends fortress management with physics-rich combat. Wait a minute. Okay, I have to watch this video to figure out what the hell they're talking about there. Because physics-rich combat to me implies kind of an arcade element, but we'll see. You recruit and multi-class squads of up to 9 heroes, build and recruit your stronghold, and navigate a world that dynamically reacts to your choices. No dice rolls. Combat relies on real ballistics. Okay. Yeah, destructible environments. Over 50 hours of gameplay, crafting, research, production, random loot drops. No, wait. They don't have random loot drops. No, instead you craft, research, and produce things. Okay, I think I see where they're going with this. I sense a theme to this game. Features 6 rival factions, day-night cycles. Oh, thank God. You know, has anybody ever said, you know, I would have loved that game, but, oh, you didn't have a day-night cycle, so get out of here. You know, I've never heard that. But anyway, moving on. I guess it gives you a little variation in terms of the graphics. You see the cities at night, cities in the day, but I always just find it amounts to, now I got to wait 8 hours for the blacksmith to come back. Yeah, so I hope it's not like that. Okay, anything else to say about this? Released August 7, 2025, a full release after nearly a year in early access with strong positive player reviews. By strong, they mean around 86%. So, let me know what you think if you have played Shards of the Realm. Sure sounds interesting. I think I might have to give this a Matt Chat treatment just to see if they're able to pull this off, because I'm a big fan of anybody that's really trying to do innovative things. And plus, I've heard that there's a bit of an XCOM factor to this. And if you know anything about me, you had me at XCOM. All right. Next up, we've got Richard Simmons. Well, not that Richard Simmons. I don't have a Ouija board. I have a Discord. But there's another Richard Simmons that is part of the Matt Chat crew. And don't you wish you knew more? And you could know more if only you would click that link to go to that Patreon. Yeah. Okay. Simmons writes about Microsoft just dropped a retro bombshell. The original 6502 BASIC, the very interpreter that powered the Commodore PET, VIC-20, and C64, is now open source. Got to be careful. Open source and open source are very different things. Yeah. 10, print, hello, go to 10. This newly released source code fixes co-authored with Commodore, blah, blah, blah. Has a cheeky Bill Gates Easter egg. Yeah. For retro fans, this isn't just code, it's a piece of computer history finally unlocked. Yeah, so there you go. If you've been dying to delve into the world of 6502 BASIC, there you go. By the way, BASIC stands for Beginner's All-Purpose Symbolic Instruction Code. That's the kind of expertise that makes the difference here at Matt Chat. When it comes to acronyms, I'm the guy. All right, I don't know what he knows about acronyms, but Tired Gaming Dad knows about a game called Gate Zero, and he wanted to share that wealth of knowledge with us here at Matt Chat. Now, this is a story-driven adventure game that drops players into first century Israel to explore the world of the New Testament. Yes, we're getting biblical. Yep, we're going there here. Gate Zero lets you navigate ancient Jerusalem, meet historical figures, and uncover the cultural backdrop of early Christianity. Part exploration, part interactive history, Gate Zero aims to bring the biblical narrative to life in a way that no textbook ever could. Now, I got to admit, I don't know much about this game. I don't know if there's kind of a persuasion, conversion, sort of, if you know what I mean, factor to this, or they're just having good, clean fun in an interesting setting, which, I think anybody would find it interesting in those terms, in the history and all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, we'll see how this looks. Might be interesting to have the developers on, because I'm pretty sure they have a pretty interesting story to be working on a game like this, right? So let me know what you think. Gate Zero, thumbs up, thumbs down. Would you like to learn more? Just let me know. You can either send me a link, and you can make a comment here on YouTube, or you can just put your hands together and think it, and maybe it'll get to me. I doubt it, but the miracles never cease. All right, let's wrap it up with a quotation. I don't have any Matt Chat L's today. I think I told you that school started, so you're lucky to be getting this episode, folks. It is just insane trying to get everything I need to do for these classes, and I have to put that first. The students and the job must come first, unfortunately. But hey, maybe some millionaires, some Bitcoinaires? Is there a word? You know what I mean. Maybe some folks will drop enough money in the old Matt Shad hat, and then I can make you my top priority. Yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep waiting for that. All right, the quote. I was looking for quotes by James Bond novelist, and you might have heard of one called Ian Fleming. My dentist is, by the way, his name. The same thing. And he gets no shortage of people asking him if he wrote the James Bond character. And of course, he has to say, no, but with enough nitrous oxide, does it really make any difference? Okay, the quotation goes something like this. Never say no to adventures. Always say yes. Otherwise, you'll lead a very dull life. Wise words there from the great Ian Fleming, so ponder on those, and I'll see you guys next time.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
My name's Bond. James Bond.